The Tolkien Road, Episode 120, The Lord of the Rings, The Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
All right, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 The Tolkien Road.
The Tolkien Road.
The Tolkien Road.
Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through Middle-earth. On this episode, we continue our journey through The Lord of the Rings with Book 5, Chapter 6, The Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Before we get started, please head on over to iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback. It's a great way to show your support for the show and takes less than a minute. You can also stop by TolkienRoad.com, learn about previous episodes, and say hey. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/TolkienRoad and on Twitter via @TolkienRoad. Thanks for listening and enjoy. Hello everyone, welcome to the Tolkien Road. Book 5, Chapter 6 of The Lord of the Rings, The Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Greta, what's up?
Hey. Not a whole lot, you know?
Yeah.
I really like this chapter.
Yeah, well, it's action-packed.
It's super action-packed.
Yeah.
What's going on with you?
I really like this chapter too. I
Cool.
think it's going to be a good discussion.
Awesome.
Special thanks to our executive producers, Dr. William Hutton and
Dr. Hutton.
Justine Lloyd.
Justine.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
You are our generous executive producer style patrons.
You know
And we want to say thank you to all of our other patrons as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you'd like to contribute to the Tolkien Road, be one of our patrons, one of our extra awesome, amazing patrons, head on over to TolkienRoad.com or to patreon.com/TolkienRoad and find out how. And all of the extra cool bonus stuff that you can get.
It's super awesome. It's really easy to do, too.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, and I'm going to try and get, I'm going to share another bonus thing, special bonus thing, because sometimes you just, you have your standard bonus things you do for your patrons, but then you have just I feel like being awesome back to you guys, because you guys are so awesome in the first place, and so I've got a little treat coming their way. I'm going to hopefully get it posted over there for them today, but
Nice.
I've been, I've been working on this music project for the last couple of years, and trying to, in the midst of, having real traditional style jobs and, work and that kind of thing, trying to squeeze out time between that and doing the podcast and writing, trying to write a second book on Tolkien stuff, and just being really too much of a DIYer, probably too much of a do-it-yourselfer.
Yeah.
One other thing I've been doing it myself is this music project, Pale Horse Sailor, and I just released an EP, like a mini album of 5 songs for that you can go. I post a little bit about it on Facebook. If you want to go follow it on Facebook, that's awesome. You can find it you can listen to the EP as well as an earlier single I did through iTunes or Spotify or whatever it is that the cool kids are using these days to listen to stuff. And yeah, just go check it out. There's going to be lots more to come in the future, but I'm going to be sharing some some freebies with the people who are the Tolkien Road patrons. Hopefully
That's
today.
Super awesome. Man, you're making me want to be a patron.
Well, guess what?
I can be.
You don't need to be, because
Oh, that's right. But still, it sounds awesome.
that would basically just be paying Patreon a couple of extra bucks a month.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, you're right. But that all sounds super awesome.
Well, guess what?
What?
I'll give the stuff to you as well if you really want it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. I do.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Sweet. My
So-
day has been made.
Awesome. But yeah, go check it out. It is. It's not. I'm not going to say it's like songs about hobbits and dwarves and dragons or anything like that, but it is. It is certainly Tolkien inspired.
I was just going to say the same thing.
I think at this point, and there are definitely some. There's some songs that are just sort of have a maybe hopefully a little bit of a Tolkien-esque feel to them in terms of the philosophical ideas they deal with, but there are also there are a couple of lines in there that probably are very closely related to things you might have read in Tolkien. So, hey, maybe if somebody wants to go listen and tell me something that comes straight from Tolkien, send a little note in that comes straight from Tolkien. That would be cool.
That would be super cool. Yeah. Be like
or just Tolkien-esque ideas that you detect. We'll we'd love to hear from you on that note.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Check it out.
So yeah, Pale Horse Sailor, go check it out. Don't have a website for it yet, but if you go to Facebook and look for Pale Horse Sailor, you'll find it. And if you just go to the Tolkien Road Facebook page, I post a little bit about it over there, so you can find it out that way too.
Awesome.
Right on.
Totally awesome.
All right, so let's talk about this chapter, the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
Wait, no, you missed something.
Oh, secret word.
Secret word.
Yeah.
Man, it's a good thing I'm here to keep you straight, Carswell. Secret word. So our secret word from last week was tuppence.
Tuppence, that's right.
Tuppence. And shout out to Greg who chose it. It was super fun.
Yep.
We even had a couple listeners comment on how fun, what a cool secret word it was. So way to go, Greg. And actually both Matt and Mary Grace guessed it correctly.
Right on.
But Matt had the edge on the first come first serve bit. So Matt has chosen our secret word for today. And what's really funny is I was seriously just telling you that I hadn't heard back from Matt about what he wanted our secret word for today to be. And literally, as I was saying the words, as they were coming out of my mouth, I got his email. So
he must work for the NSA. Must be listening. We're bugged.
He must have secret feed from the bug in our studio. So anyway, totally serendipitous timing. And we do have a secret word today, courtesy of Matt. So keep it listen out.
Right on.
Yeah.
Booyah.
And I told you what it was, right?
Yes, you did.
Do you remember?
I do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
So it was serendipitous, right?
John. Dang it. No, it wasn't.
I'll whisper it. Serendipitous, right?
No, there's your guy's first hint. Yeah. Not serendipitous.
It's not serendipitous. There you go.
Dang.
That's your hint.
Have you been to that? There's a chocolate shop or there's a sweet shop in New York City called Serendipity. I think it's like a chain. There's other places too. But they have the bomb hot chocolate.
If I was going to start a coffee place, I would call it Serendipity.
Serendipity. That, Johnny, I think you may have just...
Copyright 2017, right John Carswell, all rights reserved.
Oh, I love it. You make me want to go open a coffee shop across the street from Starbucks and see if we could beat them.
Or if I was going to open an ice cream place, I'd just call it Serendipity.
Wow, you're on a roll this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad I don't have tons of extra cash laying around. We just go open random ice cream and coffee shops.
Yeah, man.
Oh well.
Maybe we need a Tolkien Road listener to be an angel investor on that kind of stuff.
Maybe.
Here's $1 million. Do it.
Dude, we could have a coffee and ice cream shop together. Like Baskin Robbins does, Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins, they're together sometimes, most of the time. Mm-hmm. So we could have coffee one side, ice cream on the other, and it could just be called Serendipity or Serendipity.
And you could sell tacos too.
You don't dip tacos.
Choco taco.
Okay, Choco taco is fine.
And real tacos. We could be the people who pioneer dipping tacos in
what,
coffee.
In guacamole?
In coffee.
Oh, coffee. Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, this is taking a weird turn. I think we need to get back on track quickly.
All right, the Battle of Pelennor Fields. So,
yes.
We left off last week with the charge of the Rohirrim into the Pelennor Fields. Theoden at the head, going so fast that all the other riders couldn't even keep up with him. Comparisons to Orome, the great Valar riding through the land.
Yep.
Theoden and the Rohirrim rocking the forces of Mordor like a hurricane.
Rocking the... Was it Castle?
Oh, rocking the Casbah.
Rocking the Casbah. Sorry, that's why it popped into my head. But they're rocking the Pelennor.
Rocking the Mordor.
Rocking the Mordor.
Yeah.
In the Pelennor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In Gondor, rocking the Gondor, rocking the Gondor.
But they're not attacking Gondor.
Nazgul don't like it. Dun, 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 dun. Rocking the Gondor, rocking the Gondor.
Oh. Man, I think that might need to be fleshed out a little more and shared.
Rocking the
somewhere.
Casbah. Well, yeah.
Well, no, with your
Everybody
your-
listening has got to know that song. Like everybody, I mean, Rocking the Casbah is like, you know,
Who wrote it? Who sings it?
I think it's the Clash.
Oh, is it the Clash?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
Just check that out.
Wait, I feel like we've had this discussion before about like what a Casbah is. Didn't we talk about this?
Yeah.
It's like isn't it like a club or something? It's like a, what is it? It's like a different word for a...
It's, I don't know if we want to spend all this time looking it up right now, but...
Okay. Oh man, this is the perfect song for this chapter. I'm so glad I thought of it.
Sounds nothing like the music that would go along with this chapter.
No, but can't you just see like Theoden and like all of his knights, like the banner held high, riding into Gondor?
This song doesn't have enough gravitas to it. It's too much of a dance song. This sounds like something that would be in a bad like musical version of Lord of the Rings.
You don't insult my creativity.
I love the song, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't fit the scene.
I think it does.
Well, I think
When you
you're
get to the
wrong.
chorus, I think it does.
We need to settle this by arm wrestling. That'll allow us to rabbit the
How about we
trade.
settle it by who can chug their coffee fastest?
Rockin' the Gondor,
Rockin' the Gondor, not cool, don't like it. Rockin' the Gondor, rockin' the Gondor.
That works.
It totally works. I told you so. I didn't even have to arm wrestle you. You just came to your senses on your own.
All right. Well, let's put that out of our minds, and
I don't think that's necessary, but okay.
well,
All right.
so
So
all right. The battle is joined. Even as they're riding in, and they ride in, and the joy of battle is upon the Rohirrim, and Theoden is at the charge, kicking butt and taking names, names and taking butt, and then the Nazgul, who's within Minas Tirith right now, realizes there's a problem and flies away.
right.
Right, he flies back to see what's going on out in the Pelennor Fields.
Right.
So let's read this little, not the very opening paragraph, but the couple of paragraphs after that as Theoden charges into battle.
Okay.
Do you want to read that, Theoden, King of the Mark?
Sure. You just gonna read that one paragraph?
Just keep going. Just go until I tell you to stop.
All right. Theoden, king of the Mark, had reached the road from the gate to the river, and he turned towards the city that was now less than a mile distant. He slackened his speed a little, seeking new foes, and his knights came about him, and Durnhelm was with them. Ahead nearer the walls, Elfhelm's men were among the siege engines, hewing, slaying, driving their foes into the fire pits. Well nigh all the northern half of the Pelennor was overrun, and there camps were blazing, orcs were flying towards the river like herds before the hunters. And the Rohirrim went hither and thither at their will, but they had not yet overthrown the siege, nor won the gate. Many foes stood before it, and on the further half of the plain were other hosts still unfought. Southward beyond the road lay the main force of the Haredrim, and there their horsemen were gathered about the standard of their chieftain. And he looked out, and in the growing light he saw the banner of the king, and that it was far ahead of the battle, with few men about it. Then he was filled with a red wrath, and shouted aloud, and displaying his standard, black serpent upon scarlet, he came against the white horse and the green with great press of men. And the drawing of the scimitars of the Southrons was like a glitter of stars. Then Theoden was aware of him, and would not wait for his onset, but crying to Snowmane, he charged headlong to greet him. Great was the clash of their meeting, but the white fury of the Northmen burned the hotter, and more skilled was their knighthood with long spears and bitter. Fewer were they, but they clove through the Southrons like a firebolt in a forest. Right through the press drove Theoden, Thengol's son, and his spear was shivered as he threw down their chieftain. Out swept his sword, and he spurred to the standard, hewed staff and bearer, and the black serpent foundered. Then all that was left unslain of their cavalry turned and fled far away.
All right, so pretty cool little opening sequence there where, so first, so the Rohirrim have charged into the Pelennor. Remember, the Pelennor is a pretty large area,
Yeah.
and so the Rohirrim had hit kind of on the north side, but there's this force of Southrons, of the Haradrim. There's these men who had come from the south, who are on the south side of the Pelennor Fields, and they see all this trouble all of a sudden when they thought they were just assailing Minas Tirith. They see all this trouble coming from the north side with the Rohirrim, and so basically the leader of the Southrons sees this charge coming, gets mad, and leads his men to come attack the Rohirrim head on. And Theoden's like, "Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. He charges at him, and the Rohirrim are still just full of the joy of battle and of a red hot fury.
Yeah. Yep.
And he kills. So Theoden takes down the leader of the Southrons and destroys their banner. So nicely done, Theoden.
Very nicely done.
High fives all
I think he
around.
may have just earned himself a title of Guardian of Gondor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Really awesome.
And so at that though, the Nazgul arrives. So the leader of the Nazgul, the Lord of the Nazgul, arrives upon the flying black serpent, and it dims the shield of Theoden. Everybody starts getting a little scared of this, right? Because it's a big, nasty, like, what the heck is that thing? It's like a flying snake.
Yeah,
right?
the description of it's pretty horrible.
Right. Yeah, the little, how Sauron, like, nursed it.
Yeah, with
nursed
fell
it with
meats.
fell meats until
Yeah.
it grew beyond the measure of all other things that fly, and he gave it to his servant to be his steed.
And
down.
And as if that weren't bad enough, it smells bad.
Yeah, it stank.
It stank.
Yeah.
Nasty stank.
Yeah, is that here where it just says "and it stank"?
I thought it was, but I'm not seeing it. It might
Yeah.
be later when it returns.
Yeah, I think it's a little later, but this
Oh
thing
no, it
is,
says it right here, and it stank.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was naked, and neither quill nor feather did it bear, and its various pinions were as webs of hide between horned fingers. And it stank.
Right. And so even as this, even as Theoden is having this triumph over the Southrons, the Haradrim, a black dart hits Snowmane, his steed, and Snowmane falls over, and the king falls beneath him. So basically, Big Horse falls on Theoden.
Yeah.
So not good. Right?
Not good.
Yeah.
No.
So this is not good for Theoden. And the black serpent, the foul beast, settles upon the body of Snowmane, digging in its claws, stooping its long naked neck. And the Lord of the Nazgul is like, okay, here I come. I'm going after this king of the Rohirrim here, right? Mm-hmm. And so we start to get a little bit of Merry's perspective in here again.
Yeah. It's amazing that he's still, like, unharmed.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have, like, guardian angels surrounding him or something, because it's like, he's just this little hobbit.
Yeah.
Who's hardly, compared to everyone else, like, really not well armed.
Right.
Right? And he's much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like, it's just amazing to me that he's still alive. And kicking.
Yeah.
And unblemished.
Right.
Yeah.
It is, but he is, and and so it's Darrenhelm, who he's been riding with, and as Merry sees all this happening, I believe Merry falls until the shadow came, and then when Fola had thrown them in his terror and now ran wild upon the plain. So the horse throws Darrenhelm and Merry off that they're riding,
right?
And it says Merry crawled on all fours like a dazed beast, and such a horror was on him that he was blind and sick. Kingsman, Kingsman, his heart cried within him. You must stay by him. As a father you shall be to me, you said. But his will made no answer, and his body shook. He dared not open his eyes or look up. Then, out of the blackness in his mind, he thought he heard Darrenhelm speaking. Yet now the voice seemed strange, recalling some other voice that he had known. Begone, foul Dwemer Lake, lord of Carrion. Leave the dead in peace. I have no idea what a Dwemer Lake is, but it must be a pretty nasty curse to call somebody.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to, use that unless you meant it. Unless you were, like, really trying to start a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up, Dwemer Lake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a little worse than Mama's Boy. I think.
Wow. Okay. Well, a cold voice answered, Come not between the Nazgul and his prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation beyond all darkness, where the flesh shall be devoured, and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye. A sword rang as it was drawn. Do what you will, but I will hinder it, if I may. Hinder me? Thou fool! No living man may hinder me. And here's the moment. Then Merry heard of all sounds in that hour the strangest. It seemed that Dernhelm laughed, and the clear voice was like the ring of steel. But no living man am I. You look upon a woman. Éowyn I am, Éowyn's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin. Be gone, if you be not deathless. For living or dark undead, I will smite you, if you touch him. The winged creature screamed at her, but the ringwraith made no answer and was silent, as if in sudden doubt. Very amazement for a moment conquered Merry's fear. He opened his eyes, and the blackness was lifted from them. There, some paces from him, sat the great beast, and all seemed dark about it, and above it loomed the Nazgul, lord like a shadow of despair. A little to the left, facing them, stood she whom he had called Dernhelm, but the helm of her secrecy had fallen from her, and her bright hair, released from its bonds, gleamed with pale gold upon her shoulders. Her eyes, grey as the sea, were hard and fell, and yet tears were on her cheeks. A sword was in her hand, and she raised her shield against the horror of her enemy's eyes. Éowyn it was, and Dernhelm also, for into Merry's mind flashed the memory of the face that he saw at the riding from Dunharrow, the face of one that goes seeking death, having no hope. Pity filled his heart, and great wonder, and suddenly the slow-kindled courage of his race awoke. He clenched his hand. She should not die, so fair, so desperate. At least, she should not die alone, unaided. The face of their enemy was not turned towards him, but still he hardly dared to move, dreading lest the deadly eyes should fall on him. Slowly, slowly he began to crawl aside, but the black captain, in doubt and malice intent upon the woman before him, heeded him no more than a worm in the mud. Suddenly the great beast beat its hideous wings, and the wind of them was foul. Again it leaped into the air, and then swiftly fell down upon Éowyn, shrieking, striking with beak and claw. Still she did not blench. Maiden of the Rohirrim, child of kings, slender but as a steel blade, fair yet terrible. A swift stroke she dealt, skilled and deadly. The outstretched neck she clove asunder, and the hewn head fell like a stone. Backward she sprang as the huge shape crashed to ruin, vast wings outspread, crumpled on the earth, and with its fall the shadow passed away. A light fell about her, and her hair shone in the sunrise. So Dernhelm is Éowyn, and Éowyn is all like, oh yeah, well, a man might not fail you, but guess what? I ain't no man, right?
Girl power!
And she's like, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. So, great scene, and
Terrific scene.
And Éowyn lops off the head of the flying beast.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
But there's another little twist that goes on, because the Black Rider stands up out of this. It says he rose, tall and threatening, towering above her. With a cry of hatred that stung the very tears like venom, he let fall his mace. Her shield was shivered in many pieces, and her arm was broken. She stumbled to her knees. He bent over like a cloud, and his eyes glittered. He raised his mace to kill. But suddenly he too stumbled forward with a cry of bitter pain, and his stroke went wild, driving into the ground. Merry's sword had stabbed him from behind, shearing through the black mantle, passing up beneath the hauberk, had pierced the sinew behind his mighty knee. "Éowyn, Éowyn!" cried Merry. Then tottering, struggling up, with her last strength, she drove her sword between crown and mantle, as the great shoulders bowed before her. The sword broke sparkling into many shards. The crown rolled away with a clang. Éowyn fell forward upon her fallen foe. But lo, the mantle and hauberk were empty. Shapeless they lay now on the ground, torn and tumbled, and a cry went up into the shuddering air, and faded to a shrill wailing, passing with the wind, a voice bodiless and thin that died and was swallowed up, and was never heard again in that age of this world. So, it's not just that it's not going to be it's not just that it's going to be a woman, but it's doubly not a man, because it's a woman and it's a hobbit that fells.
Right.
That fells the Lord of the Nazgul.
Super awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
So Merry comes through, finds his courage, and gets the Nazgul, the Lord of the Nazgul, from behind just as he's about to smite Éowyn, defenseless Éowyn, and then Éowyn uses that opportunity to
Finish him
put a
off.
little sword in his face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Put a little icing on the cake.
that's right.
I wonder if there is any significance to the fact that the two characters that end up felling the Lord of the Nazgul here are the two people that Theoden told to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I found that kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That both of them disobeyed his orders, right? And but yet they're the ones that end up coming through.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just kind of. I don't think that that Tolkien is. I don't think he is. I don't think he's encouraging disobedience by this, but I just kind of wonder.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Is there significance to the fact that it, or is the significance more in the fact that it's a woman and a hobbit, and not so much in that it was the two people that weren't even supposed to be there?
I mean, I don't know that you got to read. I don't know that Tolkien is really trying to say much of anything with this. I think he was trying to tell a great story, and
Yeah.
I think if anything speaks for Tolkien here and what Tolkien really thinks about this scenario of events personally, I think it would be Theoden. I mean, what Theoden says shortly hereafter, right?
Okay.
Where he says, if you just look on a little bit, he says, Mary comes up to him, and Theoden says to him, "Farewell, Master Hobbitlaw. My body is broken. I go to my fathers, and even in their mighty company I shall not now be ashamed. I felled the black serpent, a grim morn, and a glad day, and a golden sunset." Mary could not speak, but wept anew. "Forgive me, Lord," he said at last, "if I broke your command, and yet have done no more in your service than to weep at our parting." The old king smiled. "Grieve not. It is forgiven. Great heart will not be denied. Live now in blessedness, and when you sit in peace with your pipe, think of me. For never now shall I sit with you in Meduseld as I promised, or listen to your herb lore." He closed his eyes, and Mary bowed beside him. Presently he spoke again. Right? So, pause there. So, I think Theoden says it all, right? Like, great heart will not be denied, right? This is not a case where, this is not a case of, like, disobedience where it was, cowardice or like, treachery or something like that. It's kind of disobedience in name only. I mean, there might have been, if things had not gone well, he might not have had such kind words for him.
Right.
But at the same time, I think Theoden says it all. The Rohirrim are a society of people who value who value valor and courage and great deeds, right?
Yeah.
And before, when we first met Theoden, he might have been a little more like, "I told you to stay at home, you should have," right? But he's woken up from that, and he's remembered, what makes the Rohirrim, right? Is that great heart and that great courage, right? And so, how can he deny that? How can he deny that when he sees it in this, little hobbit that's, less than half of the size of a lot of his warriors, who is, who could have had every reason to stay at home, because he was told to,
right?
But was just like, "I won't," right? I whatever my sword can do in this battle, even if it's even if it's nothing, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So,
No, I just thought it was...
by the letter of the law, you might fault somebody here, but like, and I know what you're saying, but like, this is, I think Theoden says it all. Great heart will not be denied.
Yeah.
And that applies both to the Hobbit and to Mary and to Éowyn.
But he never, and we might get to this, but he never knows. Doesn't he die before it comes to light that Éowyn was actually there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish he had known. I wish he'd, someone had done. I think Mary tries to tell him, but it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad note that he never knows that Éowyn is the one who felled the great, the Nazgul steed, as well as the Lord of the Nazgul himself.
Right. Yeah.
But
But that's also just I think obviously that would. I mean, it would benefit both Éowyn and Theoden, and just a little bit of consolation, I think. But I mean, Éowyn didn't do it
Right.
so that she would be famous, right? I mean, she just did it out of pure courage and love for her king and for her country and her fellow men.
Yeah, and she remember, like, Éomer sees her shortly hereafter, and
Right.
she's not in good shape.
No,
right?
she's not. They think she's dead.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
It's almost a good thing that Theoden doesn't know, because if he had known that she was dead upon the field, or thought she was dead upon the field as
Right.
he's dying, that would have been
Well, I
like,
didn't want him to know that. I just wanted him to know that
right.
she was
Right.
victorious.
Yeah.
But that's just me. That's just me wanting, girl power to get a shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
But it happened and it's awesome, and go Éowyn.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay, so even as all this is going on, we have this kind of emotional scene of Mary over Theoden as Theoden passes away.
So
but
sad.
the battle is not over.
That
right?
was it's not over. I just wanted to say real quick that so basically Theoden was never touched by the Nazgul or the Lord of the Nazgul, correct? The whole reason he died was because he was crushed by Snowmane. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Well, and Snowmane was hit.
Right,
and
he was
that's,
hit
that's,
with a
that's
black
the problem
arrow.
with riding a horse in battle
Yes.
is, if the
Yeah.
horse gets
If the
hit,
horse
then you can
gets
fall,
hit, then you're in
and
trouble. Yeah.
and it can fall on you. And
Right.
horses,
Horses are
these
very
these
heavy.
big war horses are large. So
Yeah.
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 So
Twist of irony.
yeah. So and Theoden is, to your point, Theoden wishes that Éowyn was there so he could speak to her.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
So, but yeah, so Theoden dies. But the battle is still going on, and we find out that the further reinforcements of the enemy were hastening up the road from the river, and the legions of Morgul, and from the southward fields came footmen of Harad with horsemen before them, and behind them rose the huge backs of the Mumakil with great war towers upon them. So these are the large elephant-type beasts that are, coming up and carrying hordes of soldiers upon them. So
Right, the Oliphants.
right.
Yeah.
So, so the battle must continue. Éomer, and Merry is thinking to himself, "Where's Gandalf? Is he not here? Could he not have saved the king and Éowyn?" But Éomer rides up in haste and has some men with him, and he looks upon the king, and grief falls upon him.
Yeah.
And all of the men of Rohan who see the king has fallen begin to grieve, and kind of a wail goes up from them, Theoden king, Theoden king. But Éomer realizes that now it's up to him to rally the troops.
Yep.
And he says, "Mourn not overmuch. Mighty was the fallen. Meet was his ending. When his mound is raised, women then shall weep. War now calls us." So, so this is, this is a call to, not to mourn over what's happened here so far, but the battle is still going on to keep the focus on the battle.
Exactly.
But even as he says this, he sees Éowyn lying there, and this hits Éomer pretty hard. It says, "Éowyn, Éowyn," he cried at last. "Éowyn, how come you here? What madness or devilry is this? Death, 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 death take us all." Then, without taking counsel or waiting for the approach of the men of the city, he spurred headlong back to the front of the great host, and blew a horn, and cried aloud for the onset. Over the field rang his clear voice, calling, "Death! Ride, ride to ruin and the world's ending." And with that the host began to move. But the Rohirrim sang no more. "Death!" they cried with one voice loud and terrible, and gathering speed like a great tide, their battles swept about their fallen king and passed, roaring again southwards. So, the seeing first Theoden fallen and then Éowyn there is kind of a, it hits the Rohirrim hard, but all it really does is inspire even a greater,
Yeah.
like, just anger and will for vengeance within them, right? To go after their enemies and take down their enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's still a lot of enemies, right? That this is they're still a small
Yeah.
force compared to all the forces that
They're
are
greatly outnumbered.
that are going against them and against Minas Tirith. There's a little note here about Mary's sword.
Mm-hmm.
It says, as Mary stood... You want to read this? Those 2 paragraphs?
And still...
Yeah.
And still Meriadoc the Hobbit stood there, blinking through his tears, and no one spoke to him. Indeed, none seemed to heed him. He brushed away the tears and stooped to pick up the green shield that Éowyn had given him, and he slung it at his back. Then he looked for his sword that he had let fall. For even as he struck his blow, his arm was numbed, and now he could only use his left hand. And behold, there lay his weapon, but the blade was smoking like a dry branch that has been thrust in a fire. And as he watched it, it writhed and withered and was consumed. So passed the sword of the Barrow Downs, work of Westernessy. But glad would he have been to know its fate, who wrought it slowly, long ago, in the North Kingdom, when the Dunedain were young, and chief among their foes was the dread realm of Angmar, and its sorcerer king. No other blade, not though mightier hands had wielded it, would have dealt that foe a wound so bitter, cleaving the undead flesh, breaking the spell that knit his unseen sinews to his will.
So just a, interesting little side note here about this sword that Mary had carried with him from the Barrow Downs way back, just in, the Fellowship. Book 1, this is... What? Oh, okay. So basically it's saying that the person who made this would be happy to know that it had been used in such a way
Right.
against... And again, because who had it been used against? The Witch King of Angmar, right? Because that's who the Lord of the Nazgul was. This is the...
Okay.
This is the person who had assailed the North Kingdom, right, where the Shire is, where the Shire is now, and the person who made this sword would have been glad to know that it was used against that same villain who had gone to war against the Northern Kingdom all those years ago, and it was used to actually fell him. That would have been a very rewarding thought, for him.
Indeed.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, were you gonna say something?
No, I was just thinking about, it's just also kind of a picture of how evil this thing was. If it was able, if it just burned that, such a well-made sword, it just kind of devoured it like a branch, like a dead branch in fire,
Right.
And plus, I thought it was interesting too that it mentioned Mary's arm being numbed.
Yeah.
Kind of like, dang. That
Well,
stinks.
I mean, if you think about putting like your full force into a blow like that, like just that clang and like the recoil of the force when you hit something.
Oh, okay.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's gonna,
I wasn't thinking.
that's gonna numb just about anybody's.
I didn't even think about the force. I was thinking it was some kind of like poison that
I honestly
had
think
traveled
it was.
through the blade.
I think it was just.
It may have just been the force. I've never used a sword on metal, so.
Well, yeah, but you can just think about if you. I mean, even if you like accidentally, just like stubbing your, like a small scale, like stubbing your toe when you like go full force into something with your toe accidentally.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
And it's kind of this smarting pain. If you were to, come down on something, metal against metal, or even not metal against metal, but just full force, not holding anything back, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
true. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So it's just gonna vibrate back up into it, and it's gonna like completely numb your arm for a little while.
Right. It'll come back to life eventually.
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
I believe it does. Anyway.
Yeah, it should.
So, the battle is still underway, and the forces of the Rohirrim actually meet up with the forces of Gondor, who are about on the fields. We've heard of the Prince of Dol Amroth and his forces, and they have a conversation about how things are going out here. But the battle is just getting fiercer and fiercer at this point.
Yeah.
It says it says, the horsemen rode eastward to the succor of Éomer, Hurin the tall, warden of the keys, and the lord of Lasarnach, and Hirluin of the green hills, and Prince Imrahil the fair, with his knights all about him. Not too soon came their aid to the Rohirrim, for fortune had turned against Éomer, and his fury had betrayed him. The great wrath of his onset had utterly overthrown the front of his enemies, and great wedges of his riders had passed clear through the ranks of the Southrons, discomfiting their horsemen and riding their footmen to ruin. But wherever the Mumakil came, there the horses would not go, but blenched and swerved away, and the great monsters were unfought, and stood like towers of defense, and the Haradrim rallied around them. And if the Rohirrim at their onset were thrice outnumbered by the Haradrim alone, soon their case became worse, for new strength came now streaming to the field out of Osgiliath. There they had been mustered for the sack of the city and the rape of Gondor, waiting on the call of their captain. He now was destroyed, but Gothmog, the lieutenant of Morgul, had flung them into the fray. Easterlings with axes, and Variags of Khand, Southrons in scarlet, and out of Farharad, black men like half-trolls, with white eyes and red tongues. Soon now hastened up behind the Rohirrim. Others held westward to hold off the forces of Gondor and prevent their joining with Rohan. So, so for all of their early successes in this battle, things are not looking good for the Rohirrim and the forces of Gondor.
No.
There's just seem to be endless reinforcements available to the forces of Mordor.
If ever there was a need for Guardians of the Galaxy, it would be right now, right here.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Guardians of some kind. Seriously.
Some kind. But I think we kind of skipped over this, but I think it's worth noting that it's the prince of Dol Amroth,
mm-hmm.
that notices that Éowyn is indeed not dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Good.
Yeah. He says, "Are there no leeches among you? She is hurt, to the death maybe, but I deem that she yet lives." And he held the bright burnished vambrance that was upon his arm before her cold lips, and behold, a little mist was laid on it, hardly to be seen.
There you go. Right on.
So yay. Éowyn lives.
She's alive.
She's alive.
So, and even as we hear about all these forces that are coming against the good guys, it looks like there's even more forces coming against them, and things are really starting to look hopeless.
It's really looking bad.
Yeah. So they glance down towards the south, and coming up on the Anduin River are these corsairs.
What is a corsair?
It's like a type of sailing vessel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says, the Corsairs of Umbar. The Corsairs of Umbar. The Corsairs of Umbar. Look, the Corsairs of Umbar are coming. So Belfalos is taken, and the Aethir, and Lebanon is gone. The Corsairs are upon us. It is the last stroke of doom. And some without order, for none could be found to command them in the city, ran to the bells and told the alarm. And some blew the trumpets, sounding the retreat. "Back to the walls," they cried, "back to the walls. Come back to the city before all are overwhelmed." But the wind that sped the ships blew all their clamor away. So, the Corsairs of Umbar were a fleet, a naval fleet that had come up, that they had been expecting to come up from the south. And the hope had been that that the southern region, so you kind of look in here and you can see there's the mouth of the Anduin right here. The hope had been that anything that might come in the form of a naval fleet might be held off by the forces of Belfalos and Lebanon, which are Gondorian forces, right?
Okay.
But unfortunately, it looks to them like that's not the case.
That's been overrun.
That those places have been overrun.
So now they're not just coming by land, but they're coming by water as well.
Right.
That's not good.
Yeah. Or so they think.
Ah.
But it says, "Stern now was Éomer's mood, and his mind clear again. He let blow the horns to rally all men to his banner that could come hither." The Rohirrim, every time there seems to be something stacked, it's like the more you throw against them, the fiercer they become.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're guaranteed to win, but it's just like they're just like, "Oh, bring it on!
Yeah.
You want to throw some more of that at me? Yeah, I'll kill some more of you."
Yeah.
They're just at this point they're not afraid of death, and
right. I think
it's almost like they're welcoming, because their shout now is just death.
Yeah,
death.
Come get us.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's really well illustrated when it talks about, I think it's Éomer, and he's, it actually says that he laughed. he says, for once more, lust of battle was on him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was still unscathed, and he was young, and he was king, the lord of a fell people. So,
Yeah.
And lo, even as he laughed at despair, he looked out again on the black ships, and he lifted up his sword to defy them. So he laughed at despair.
Right.
That's a...
Yeah, a great scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like he's thinking to himself, like, well, this is. Remember all those stories you listened to about the great warriors when you were young, right?
Mm-hmm.
The great warriors of Rohan,
Mm-hmm.
your forefathers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? You're one of them now, right? You're riding into this hopeless battle.
Exactly.
It's
like, yeah. No, I was just going to say, it's, when you're on the defensive, it's like being hopelessly down in an athletic competition. Like, you've got nothing left to lose. Sometimes it's easier to come back than it is to maintain a lead, So I feel like this is just kind of, they're the underdogs, and they're channeling that underdog spirit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and let's read these 4 lines he says as he laughs, right? He says,
he laughs,
out of dark, out of doubt, out of dark to the day's rising, I came singing in the sun, sword unsheathing. To hope's end I rode, and to heart's breaking. Now for wrath, now for ruin, and a red nightfall. So yeah, they're ready. They're ready for it. Yeah. And then we have this great.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
You catastrophic moment,
yes,
right?
Yes.
The turning in the face of what seems like despair, a hopeless cause. A great hope comes upon them, and then wonder took him, and a great joy, and he cast his sword up in the sunlight and sang as he caught it, and all eyes followed his gaze, and behold, upon the foremost ship a great standard broke, and the wind displayed it as she turned towards the Harland. There flowered a white tree, and that was for Gondor, but 7 stars were about it, and a high crown above it, the signs of Elendil that no lord had borne for years beyond count. And the stars flamed in the sunlight, for they were wrought of gems by Éowyn, daughter of Elrond, and the crown was bright in the morning, for it was wrought of mithril and gold. Thus came Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elessar, Isildur's heir, out of the paths of the dead, borne upon a wind from the sea to the kingdom of Gondor. And the mirth of the Rohirrim was a torrent of laughter, and a flashing of swords, and the joy and wonder of the city was a music of trumpets and a ringing of bells. But the hosts of Mordor were seized with bewilderment, and a great wizardry it seemed to them that their own ships should be filled with their foes. And a black dread fell on them, knowing that the tides of fate had turned against them, and their doom was at hand. So, it turns out that the ships that are coming up from the south, though they are the ships that they thought they were, they're not manned by the people they thought they were. They're in fact manned by Aragorn, and all of these people, these ghostly figures, these dead that had owed him allegiance.
So the ones that he summoned at the that rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Come pay your debt. Time to pay your debt.
So where did the ships come from? Like, how did they...
Well, they were coming up. They were actually coming up to be reinforcements for the forces of Mordor, right?
Right, and they basically just cleared them out?
Yeah. The Aragorn, it sounds like they basically ambushed them further down.
I see.
Further downriver. And so they come up and...
I see.
And,
so they hijacked their boats.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I like it.
Ooh,
the Guardians.
Yeah.
Coming from the south.
That's right.
Yeah, Aragorn's kind of like a Guardian of the Galaxy.
I guess.
Yeah. He is.
Okay.
I don't know which one, but he's like one of them.
All right. Very well. Star-Lord.
Oh, yeah, that works.
But before all went, Aragorn with the flame of the west, Andúril like of new fire kindled, Narsil reforged as deadly as of old, and upon his brow was the star of Elendil. So Aragorn is going in like full on, like, hey, what's up? The king has returned. I'm putting everybody on notice that the sheriff is back in town. Right?
Yes.
So you're all going to die.
Boys are back in town.
That's right.
Boys are back in town. And Legolas and Gimli are with them. Him, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There came Legolas and Gimli wielding his axe, and Halbarad with the standard, and Elethon and Elrohir with stars on their brow, and the dour-handed Dunedain, rangers of the north, leading a great valor of the folk of Lebanon and Lamadon and the fiefs of the south. So these are, many of the forces of, that were further south of Lebanon and Lamadan, and all the different places of Gondor that were further south.
Yes.
So, and the peoples, the forces of Mordor are terrified by all of this. And it says they were seized with bewilderment and a great wizardry. It seemed to them that their own ship should be filled with their foes. And a black dread fell on them, knowing that the tides of fate had turned against them and their doom was at hand. So Éomer and Aragorn finally meet up again. Éomer, of course, had thought Aragorn was done for, had gone on this fool's errand.
Yeah, paths of the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody comes back from the paths of the dead.
That's right.
That's why you don't go to the paths of the dead.
That's why you don't go to the paths of the dead. Still, there's a big battle to be fought, and it's, and even with the forces that have arrived, the reinforcements that have arrived, and hard fighting and long labor they had still, for the Southrons were bold men and grim and fierce in despair, and the Easterlings were strong and war-hardened and asked for no quarter. And so in this place and that, by burn, homestead, or barn, upon hillock or mound, under wall or on field, still they gathered and rallied and fought until the day wore away. Then the sun went at last behind Mindulin, and filled all the sky with a great burning, so that the hills and the mountains were dyed as with blood. Fire glowed in the river, and the grass of the Pelennor lay red in the nightfall. And in that hour the great battle of the field of Gondor was over, and not one living foe was left within the circuit of the Ramas. All were slain, save those who fled to die, or to drown in the red foam of the river. For few ever came eastward to Morgul or Mordor, and to the land of the Haradrim came only a tale from far off, a rumor of the wrath and terror of Gondor. So, this results in the victory of the forces of Gondor and of Rohan for the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Decisive victory. Pretty much few of the enemies actually even escape back over the river into, all the way into Mordor or Morgul. Yeah. And the forces that came from the south, these men that came from the south, few of them, if any, ever get back to their homelands, and all there really gets back is a rumor that you don't want to mess with Gondor.
Yeah.
You might think you're going to mess with Gondor, but you're going to get messed with if you mess with Gondor.
It's pretty terrific, because you just really, it just seems like for most of this chapter, that they're just doomed.
Yeah.
Like this is it. But then it's, but the night is darkest right before the dawn.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Midnight is where the day begins, as they say.
Ah, indeed.
Yeah. Well, and this is such a great this is such a great catastrophic chapter.
Mm-hmm.
You catastrophe this idea that was so important to Tolkien, that as things get to their most seemingly hopeless point, that's when one should be looking for deliverance, right? And I think that's honestly, the longer I live, the more I feel like in everybody's life, like in all of our lives, there's something that plays out like that, on an individual basis.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why we should all laugh at despair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just laugh at it.
Don't give into it.
Don't give into it.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, the chapter ends with this note on the toll of the fallen. Maybe we can just read. So even though they do win this decisive victory, there's still many that die.
Yeah.
And
it kind of mentions each of them.
Some folks we want to mention. So maybe we can do 4 lines at a time.
Okay.
Read through this. We heard of the horns and the hills ringing, the swords shining in the south kingdom. Steeds went striding to the stoning land as wind in the morning. War was kindled.
There Theoden fell, Thangling mighty, to his golden halls and green pastures in the northern fields, never returning. High lord of the host. Harding and Guthlaf.
Dunhir and Éowyn, doughty Grimbold, Herfara and Herobrand, Horn and Fostred, fought and fell there in a far country.
In the mounds of Mundburg, under mould they lie, with their league fellows, lords of Gondor. Neither Hurlin the fair to the hills by the sea, nor Forlong the old to the flowering vales.
Ever to Arnok, to his own country, returned in triumph. Nor the tall bowmen, Derufin and Duilin, to their dark waters, meres of Morthon under mountain shadows.
Death in the morning, and at day's ending, lords took and lowly. Long now they sleep, under grass in Gondor by the great river. Grey now as tears, gleaming silver.
Red then it rolled, roaring water. Foam dyed with blood flamed at sunset. As beacons mountains burned at evening. Red fell the dew in Ramas Echor. It's another one of those poems that you almost think that like Tolkien needed to write a whole story to go with the poem.
Right.
It's such a beautiful elegy.
Mm-hmm. It is. Wait, elegy, is that the same as a eulogy?
No, an elegy is a eulogy is just could be prose, right? An elegy, a eulogy is just something spoken for somebody who has died. It could be a poem,
right.
But it's usually in our day it's spoken.
Right.
A speech or writing in praise of a person or thing, especially one who recently died or retired, is a term of endearment.
So what's an elegy?
An elegy is actually a form of poetry. It's a poem of serious reflection, typically a lament for the dead.
Oh.
Yeah.
Woo. I learned something today.
There you go.
No, it's absolutely beautiful. And it's also kind of after this, it's interesting to me that Tolkien ended the chapter this way,
mm-hmm.
Instead of on the high note of the victory.
Right.
It's like, well, let's remember the cost,
mm-hmm.
Because everything comes at a cost.
Absolutely.
Right? And this was, all of these men died valiantly, right, on the field of battle,
mm-hmm.
giving their lives for a just cause. So even that in and of itself is not, it's even though it's a reflection of those, of the dead. Is that what it is? A lament for the dead.
Right.
It still has a hopeful note to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it talks about, them going, long now they sleep under grass in Gondor by the great river.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they died good deaths.
They did.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there's, I think if you read deeply into the things that inspired Tolkien, we've talked about his writing about Beowulf before, the monsters and the critics, and in that work he talks about, he's very concerned with the idea that there are all these people, valiant people who live and good people who lived before the coming of Christ, and so he asked the question: should we consign our forefathers, our pre-Christian forefathers, to perdition, right? And Tolkien is asking this as a devout Christian himself, and his answer to this is basically, they no, because they labored in hope, and they fought against the darkness in various ways, and against evil in various ways, when they didn't have the clear hope that we have. Right?
Yeah.
On this side of the resurrection.
Right. But they still labored.
And what is that hope that he's referring to? He's referring to the triumph over death itself. Right? They gave their lives not knowing that there would be... But I think even in them, though, there was a dim hope.
Absolutely.
Right?
No,
there was a hope that, like, this can't... That I think in us human beings, there's a sense that, like, we can't believe that the end of our lives is actually the end of us.
Right. But this is all there is. There's got to be something more.
There seems to be something within us that just is part of human nature that
mm-hmm.
just can't accept that as final. And you find that when you read deeply
mm-hmm.
throughout all of Tolkien's Middle-earth works as well, you find that same theme.
Mm-hmm.
When Absolutely. when you look at what he says about men early on in this, even in the Silmarillion, before men even really come on the scene, he talks about these sorts of ideas that the destiny of man, even opposed to the elves, is beyond this world, and it's shrouded in darkness,
mm-hmm.
in these early times,
right?
As to what that destiny is, but it goes beyond. Men can't actually find the happiness they're looking for in this world.
Right.
Right.
Well, even all men from the beginning of time, were made in the likeness and image of God,
mm-hmm.
right? And God knew the plan for Christ. So there's obviously in all men that hope of what
mm-hmm.
is to come.
Yeah.
Because
well, and this is why the Christian idea of the logos is such a cool one, because and what that means is in the first chapter of John, the Gospel of John, it talks about Christ as the logos, and what the logos
mm-hmm.
is the Greek word for the reason,
mm-hmm.
right? For the
mm-hmm.
meaning, like that Christ is the meaning. And so even before his incarnation, he was, right?
Yeah.
Through him all things were made, right? And so he is that. So that hope that they felt, you know, that even these Rohirrim or whoever you're talking about, that dim hope that they could not elucidate like we might. What were they sensing? Well, they were sensing that the Christian argument would be that they were sensing Christ, right, before they knew him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so anyway, and I think these are ideas. I'm not just speaking as what John Carswell thinks right here. These are things that I detect in Tolkien's own work, and I would go to bat for to say that this is what in large part what Tolkien was writing about and why he wrote these things.
Yeah, preach it.
So anyway, not that he was being didactic and trying, that he was like, I'm gonna write this story in order to prove this point. He wanted to tell a cool story, and at the end of the day, that's what we got. And so, right on.
But it couldn't help but be infused with,
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. It
enriches
it to know where it was coming from, to know why he had these thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well said.
Booyah. All right.
Drop the mic.
So the Casbah has been rocked, and it is now haiku time.
So let's do this. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 syllables in haiku. Boom. Epic boom.
All right.
Alright. Who's going first?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I win! Let's see here. I'll go first. I wrote 3, and I'm really not happy with any of them.
Okay.
But I'll read the one that I'm happiest with.
Very well.
Okay. I just feel like this chapter was, so jam-packed. Almost a haiku couldn't do it justice. Mm-hmm. You couldn't get all the good in one haiku.
Yeah, but that's not what you should strive to do in any chapter.
Well, that's what I strive to do.
Well, you should just strive to pick something that's cool and go with that. Anyway.
Go with that. I know, but there's so many cool things. Okay, here's my haiku. O fair warrior, smote by black blade, death be not proud. Éowyn wins.
Right on.
Thanks.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, here's mine. King Theoden falls, Éomer rises. Brother of Éowyn, legend.
Ooh. I like it.
Yeah.
You done good, Johnny. You done good.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have lots of haiku.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see here. We have some really nice notes. I'll share those maybe after we do haiku. Okay. So here's from Gregory. Oh my gosh. I think Gregory sent in several. So we'll just take turns reading them. He says, quite an eventful and touching chapter we have this time. Here are my haiku. So here's Gregory Simonson's first haiku. The old white horse, in one last glorious ride, brings down the black serpent.
Nice.
Yes. He said, I must praise the movie here. Having Éowyn speak to Theoden as he is dying is so well done that when I'm watching, I forget they've changed it. And I agree the charge scene in the movie is excellent. Well, I forgot that Éowyn talks to Theoden in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's one good change. All right. Here's our, here's 2 more haiku.
Right on. A halfling's sharp sting, combined with a woman's swing, fells the Nazgul king.
Oh, that one rhymes.
We know this is true because it rhymes.
Because it rhymes.
That's right.
Yes.
Nicely done. And
Indeed.
then I'll go and read the other one.
Okay.
A great evil gone, not by hand of doughty men, but by the o'erlooked.
Oh, yeah. Overlooked. I like that. Yes, not by the disobedient, by the overlooked. I like that.
It says not by hand of doughty men, not disobedient. It says doughty men, not disobedient.
I know, but that's what I was saying. So we were talking about how those were the two that disobeyed Theoden's orders, right? But I like the fact that Gregory referred to them as the overlooked.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I prefer that to my description of disobedient. That's what I'm saying.
Right on. I got it.
Yeah, okay. He says the defeat of the Witch King is one of the best long scenes in the books. We know Tolkien was disappointed with the woods coming to the castle in Macbeth and wrote his own version. Could the thing about no living man may hinder me, but no living man am I, be Tolkien's reworking of no man of woman born? While Shakespeare's way around this is rather icky, Tolkien's solution is simpler and I think more brilliant. That's an interesting parallel to draw.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Here is Greg's last final haiku. When all hope seems lost, from out of the enemy's ships, the king comes again. Yep. Awesome. Another good scene.
Mm-hmm.
Seem to be a lot of those in Tolkien.
Right.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry, I was a little
Gregory's
bit.
son Charles.
Sorry, Greg. I was a little bit kind of distracted because I was trying to pull something up. So sorry if I'm like Greta's like, oh yeah, this is great, and then I'm like, oh yeah, cool.
Well, it doesn't really matter what you think, as long as I think it's cool.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
That's what really matters for our listeners. So
Yeah.
So yeah, no, awesome stuff, Greg. Well done, you.
You need to forward this stuff to me also, right? You're supposed to forward it to me.
Am I like everything?
Yeah,
I
just
thought
like
that's
to read
why
it.
I took it on, is because
You take it
you
on
were leaving
because
stuff
so you
out.
can organize it and present it. Right?
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
now we have that clarified. I'll forward you them all.
Because it's my job to get what we talk about ready, and then.
But I thought correspondence was something I was taking off your plate.
Well, it doesn't mean I still don't want to like read what people say.
Okay.
You know.
Oh, awesome sauce. Okay. Well, we have two from Josh. Do you want to read his first one?
Sure.
Superfan Josh.
Horsejoy neighs in defiance, and Dwemer Lake looms with sepulchral crown. It's a hard word to say.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah. That.
Sepulchral crown. I like that he used Dwemer
Sepulchral.
Lake, too.
Yeah.
Says this haiku reflects the combat between Éowyn and Angmar. Éowyn translates to horsejoy.
Awesome.
I did not know that.
Interesting.
That's really interesting. Dwemer Lake is the name given to the Witch King by Éowyn during Pelennor. Dwemer Lake seems to be a Rohini/Rohirric word, which may translate into specter or work of necromancy.
Yeah.
Whether this title given to Angmar by Éowyn or simply how the people describe the Nazgul is up to debate. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I always learn something from Josh's haiku, which is super awesome. I did not know that Éowyn translates to horsejoy. That's cool. All right. Second haiku from
Very
Superfan
cool.
Josh. House of Elendil. The White Tree. 7 stars. Gems. A crown for a king. Good stuff.
Awesome. Good stuff indeed.
This final line is taken directly from a Game of Thrones, albeit from completely different circumstances.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. He also says in writing this haiku, I kept in mind heraldry as depicted in GRRM, A Song of Ice and Fire series. Do you know what GRRM is?
George R.R. Martin, the guy who wrote Game of Thrones, or is the created kind of the. So just FYI, and Josh is really into Game of Thrones.
Okay.
We have not watched Game of
No,
Thrones.
we have not.
We don't know. Like, I mean, I keep up with the kind of the nerd news,
Mm-hmm.
the geek news sites. So I kind of know how popular Game of Thrones is, and see lots of talk about it. And so I know who George R.R. Martin is as well. But I've never read the books, and I've seen part of one episode of the series. You have not seen any of it.
I have not seen any
I've seen
of it.
part of one episode of the series. And Yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to get into a long discussion of it, but it's, I don't know, it's not. I'm sure Josh would make a case, and many people would make a case of why we love it, but I don't know. It's just not on my radar.
Well, the guy
I'm not sure if I come to Lord of the Rings and Tolkien stuff because of the same things that appeal about Game of Thrones to people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm sure I would think it was well done because apparently it's very well, like the show is very well produced and everything. But the one episode I saw was just, it was pretty violent.
Yeah.
And it was, anyway. I don't want to badmouth it because I know Josh and many others
I think a lot of Tolkien fans are into it.
Yeah.
Right.
But as I've said before, my thing is like I don't come at the Tolkien stuff because I'm like really into fantasy. Mm-hmm. I don't read a lot of fantasy other than Tolkien.
Yeah. I
came to Tolkien because there's a deeper element in his stories that really draws me. Right. And maybe in an alternate universe he could have written science fiction stories, but if those same kind of things, the deeper kind of things were in there, I would have been just as drawn to it, I think. Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting question, but yeah, I know Josh says likes to reference Game of Thrones, and and that's great, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to be clear for folks that you and I know nothing about Game of Thrones.
We know nothing about it. We're completely ignorant.
Yeah.
But I do love, when people kind of weave similar genres into the, are kind of inspired to write haiku about Tolkien works. That's, also has kind of a backstory and something in the same vein. Right. Because I know a lot of people Josh too likes to reference Star Wars stuff, so.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Well, Star Wars, I'm like, Star Wars, I can talk the talk.
But no, I think it's cool that we have so many different, different types of entertainment out there that can be kind of, dovetailed and woven together. So, good stuff.
Right on.
Always. We got a note from Amanda. We heard from Amanda again. And what's kind of funny is that she was behind, apparently. But now she's caught up. But what's funny is that she's too caught up. Because she sent us haiku for chapter 7. So next week's episode. Mm-hmm. So she didn't send us any for today. Yeah. But we'll be sure to share hers next week.
Right on.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
So good. Way to be on the ball, Amanda. We heard from super fan Mary Grace. She sent us one haiku. I'll let you read it.
Okay. Fulfilling her wish, Éowyn confronts the Nazgul. No man am I.
No man am I. Preach it.
Right on.
Awesome sauce. Good stuff, Mary Grace. And then we also have a note from Matt. Matt Scarance. He says, great chapter after great chapter as Tolkien draws his epic to its climax. The silver tree appearing on the mast of the black ships is perhaps the second greatest example of view catastrophe in the story. Mm-hmm. The slaying of the Witch King, the reunion of Aragorn and Éomer, and many other iconic scenes in this chapter. As much as I like the film version, the Battle of the Pelennor Fields is done only half right, with the Grey Company and Elrond's twin sons suffering a grievous omission. And sadly, the movie doesn't really capture the impact of this line. Before all went Aragorn with the flame of the west, Andruel like a new fire kindled, Narsil reforged as deadly as of old, and upon his brow the star of Elendil. Mm-hmm. One of the other highlights of this chapter is the Song of the Mountains of Mundburg, because as if the chapter wasn't a poem in itself, Tolkien adds an epic poem describing the valorous fallen of Rohan and Gondor. So in the shadow of such great poetry, here are my haiku.
Right on. That's
awesome
good.
Lead up.
Yeah, awesome lead up.
Yeah. All right, I'll read the first one, and you can read the second two.
Okay.
Éowyn I am, a living woman foretold, slays the undead king. Mm-hmm. Go Éowyn. Go Éowyn. Awesome.
Booyah.
Yep.
The white tree flowers. Out of the sea, the high king comes bearing steel flame. Right on.
Yes. Awesome. High king. Steel flame. You want to read the last one?
Sure. A hobbit alone, forgotten by all, does an unforgettable deed.
Yes. Awesome. I love it. What is that, like juxtaposition, or was that like a term for that? Forgotten and then unforgotten? How he's forgotten, but his deed
right,
is
yeah.
What is that called? Is that a word?
Well, I think it's a form of antithesis. So
That's
like,
what I was looking for. Yes, antithesis.
It's antithetical. Throwing antithetical ideas in there is a good poetic device.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Matt. And what was cool about Matt's secret word guess is he actually infused his guess with a compliment. He said episode 119 was certainly worth much more than all the tuppences you mentioned in it put together.
Boom.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Yeah, that's it for Haiku.
Cool.
Yeah, we have a really nice note from James I wanted to share super quick.
Okay.
He says, James Lindberg, he says, thank you for sharing your music. I found the end of the last episode to be highly humorous. And I got a bit of schooling because Gnarls Barkley covered Gone Daddy Gone. So I just assumed it was an original tune, so thanks for that. And lastly, a bit on your discussion of what Skyfield means. Now, I'm not certain, but in the Fellowship, Sam recites a poem, actually sings, if I'm not mistaken, about Gil-galad, and one line is as follows. The countless stars of heaven's field were mirrored in his silver shield. So perhaps the sky field is just the sky. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping up the great work. Nothing but love. May the force be with you.
Right on.
Good stuff. Thank you, James.
Yes.
Great hearing from you.
Thank you indeed. I wanted to just mention, every once in a while we like to look at people, what folks have said on iTunes, and, because we asked people to leave comments there. We did have one person comment both on iTunes and send us a note as well. Raygun Dillard. She says, "Hey, fellow travelers, I just wanted to let you know that I left an iTunes review, which I never effing do. I did this because you thoroughly helped me get through the Silmarillion. I had been reading it for a year and was getting nowhere until I stumbled upon your podcast. I was thrilled that you went chapter by chapter and went into detail as to what happens and reminding me who is who. It's awesome that John, a seasoned reader, and Greta, a first-time reader, hosted together because Greta serves as a surrogate listener to poke, prod, and ask questions that a seasoned reader might not cover." Exactly. Right on. Oftentimes, it's hard to get into podcasts about Tolkien because they assume you know things that you just haven't read about or forgot about because the content was so dense. Thank you for this podcast. I've been a lifelong fan, and now I've gone deeper into the rabbit hole I've always wanted to explore. My dad read me the Lord of the Rings books as a kid, so I got so many cool daughter points when I told him I had finished the Silmarillion. Now I can go back and listen to all your LOTR episodes and relive the book as well. Stay cool, Carswells. Stay cool, Raygun.
Yes.
That's an awesome note. Thank you so much.
Really,
and
great.
As we said, every time we hear from somebody that this helped them get through the Silmarillion, and and they found it so rewarding, that makes it all worth it. All the hours we put into doing this thing, makes it hugely worth it. So we really appreciate it. So I'm not sure where we left off last time with the iTunes comments, but we'll just start with March 31st. From My Name is Taken, frowny face. This is a great mixture of insights into Tolkien and entertaining exchanges between John and Greta. Highly recommended it to anyone who wants to learn about Tolkien in a more fun, i.e. less academic environment. Awesome. And then we have it looks like a Hebrew name, and I have no idea how to pronounce that. This series of podcasts would be a great benefit for anyone wishing to read or reread The Lord of the Rings. I have skipped the Silmarillion chapters and had trouble reading it a few years ago, but enjoyed Hurin, The Hobbit, and Lord of the Rings. Thank you, John and Greta. And he asks, who are your top 5 characters from LOTR? Asking for a friend, MC Noel, Rock Bottom Creek, Florida. We probably don't have time to figure that out on here, but maybe we'll do a special episode on that very question, the top 5 characters.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah. So, awesome. Thank you for the comment and the 5-star rating over there.
Yeah.
We had a 1-star rating. Yeah, those happen every once in a while. I think this is actually our first 1-star rating, though. Anybody's actually left a comment. Wang Badan. I'm a big fan of Tolkien. I have now tried to listen to the podcast 3 times over the last year. I end up deleting it each time. Discussion is too amateurish for me. Oh, too amateurish. Sorry, we're not more professional.
Sorry. Sounds like
Wang
he needs to
Badan,
go find the Tolkien
with
professor.
your super professional name. Goodness gracious. I'm so frustrated with the mindless and unrelated banter that always seems to occupy first 15 to 20 minutes. Oh yeah, etc. do not make for an intelligent or engaging conversation. Sorry, not wasting my time anymore. Well, I'm glad
We don't want to waste your time, so...
We're not here to waste your time,
No,
my man. Wang Badan.
Yeah, that's fine.
You have a cool name, I'll tell you that.
You do have
Wang,
a cool
Wang
name.
Badan. So, I mean, you got that going for you. But,
we don't need to spend any more time on that because we know he's not listening anyway.
Yeah, I just have to say that, it strikes me that, like, this is not customer service. This is not, you're not coming to us buying something.
Right.
So it's kind of like, God bless you, my friend. Like, you just spent time writing a comment on a podcast that you don't like.
Yeah.
And leaving it 1 star.
Yeah.
Did you really need to let the world know? I guess you did. And I'm sorry that, that you feel the need to, call other people amateurs and that kind of thing when no one's forcing you to listen to a podcast.
No. And we're not trying to be the Tolkien professor, so,
Well, I don't even think... I've listened to the Tolkien professor many times, and other, there's other Tolkien things too. And it's like, really? Do you just want somebody to... if you want somebody to lecture you, you can go find people who will lecture you.
Absolutely.
So I just think it's funny that he spent the time, whoever this is, Wang Badan, spent the time to give us 1 star. It almost makes me think that if somebody's going to do that, they must have some other ulterior motive that, so it almost makes me think it's somebody who, like, has a bigger goal in denigrating our podcast. And there are people out there like that want to get ahead by denigrating other people.
True.
In some way. So,
yeah.
Anyway, fare thee well, Wang Badan. Wish you all the best. Sorry our podcast was too amateurish for us, but for every one of you, there's lots and lots and lots of folks that really appreciate what we do, and we're having a lot of fun with them.
We
so
absolutely are.
I hope maybe you have a change of heart one of these days and come back because we have a blast over here doing what we do. So God bless you, my friend. Let's see, Fishburne to Ab. This is amazingly helpful. 5 stars. The Tolkien Road is a great way for new Tolkien readers to get into the story. Boom.
Awesome. That's what
short,
we strive
sweet,
to
and
do.
to the point.
Yeah.
Fegalund. I wonder if that should have been Felagund, but maybe
it was taken.
Doing a little twist. Maybe.
Yeah.
My name didn't.
My name was taken.
Felagund was taken, and then my name was taken. Frowny Face was taken now too, so they just changed around Felagund. Great podcast, 5 stars. Could do without the haikus, but otherwise love the podcast. A great deep dive into Tolkien. Only discovered it a few months ago and already on episode 50.
Oh, sweet. A binge listener.
So yeah, and that's why we moved the haiku to the end of the episode, because we know that's not what everybody shows up for. And hey, you know what? We are totally open to constructive criticism.
Oh, absolutely.
We want to make this podcast as awesome as possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For people that want to listen.
Absolutely.
And I will say that I've tried to say less lately. Based on what Wang Badan said. Because I know that can be, and more than anything, it probably is just something I go back and listen to it and say, wow, I said a whole lot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're just having a conversation here, people.
Right. We're not trying to be super professional.
Yeah. We're not. Yeah. We are amateurs. I mean, what can I say? We are totally amateurs. But anyway, so Fegalund, yeah, we get it, and that's why we moved the haikus to the, later on we actually moved the haikus to later in the episode after we've discussed the meat of the episode, so that folks, if they want to stop at that point, they can. But hopefully they continue on, because I love the haiku. I think,
love the haiku,
and the correspondence to me is just part of, wonder of the great stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
And then, last but not least, 5 stars, amazing for first-time readers. Scarer McScary, nice name.
That's awesome.
I tried so hard to get through the Silmarillion on my own, but I never could have gotten to the end without this podcast. It's great because John is a seasoned reader and Greta is a surrogate first-time reader for the audience. She asks good questions so that John fleshes things out more fully where a new reader might need more information. Great work, guys. Keep it up. I think that must have been Reagan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
Scarer McScary.
Super fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well...
Terrific.
I think that's the end.
I think that's a wrap.
Hey, we have a new patron.
Oh,
by the
yay!
Way. Richard Wall.
Thanks,
so
Richard.
Shout out to Richard. And I think Richard has actually been listening for a long time, but just came back to the podcast recently. Started listening again.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Great to have you back.
Yes, absolutely.
And so thanks to all of our patrons, executive producers, Dr. William Hutton, Justine Lloyd, as well as the amazing Shannon Stockbridge, Josh Sosa, Brian Orr, Margaret Lyon, Emilio Perea, Zeke Farmer, Caleb Santana, James Applegate, Caitlin Fascista, Matt Scarrance, Al Taylor, Par Brenner, James Lindberg, Chris Loftus, Lawrence McGowan, and Richard Wall. We so appreciate y'all.
Very
And,
much. Very much. You guys are the reason we do what we do.
And we appreciate all of our listeners.
Oh,
Thank you all.
yes. You all rock steady.
And next time we will be discussing the next chapter, the Pyre of Denithor.
Indeed.
And we will talk at you next time.
Yes, we will. Be here or be square.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org and tolkienroad.com for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes, and consider supporting us financially via patreon.com/TolkienRoad. On our next episode, we'll continue our journey through the Lord of the Rings with Book 5, Chapter 7, The Pyre of Denithor. Please send haiku or other correspondence to tolkienroadpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.